So in April of 2022, a team of researchers and counselors and ministry leaders released findings from a study of almost 3,000 parents. Half of them were committed Christians, and the other half considered themselves having no faith affiliation at all. And the results of this study was astounding. All the parents, whether they were Christian or not, they wanted the same number one thing. They had the same number one goal for their kids, and that was positive mental health. So today, we're going to talk about how to talk about your kids' mental health. So if we all have the same number one goal, positive mental health, how do we have these conversations in our home about it? How do we talk about it? Well, here's step number one. First of all, you need to care for your mental health. You know how when your partner walks in the house after a long day of work and you automatically know what had happened at work, even if you haven't talked to them, just by how they come into the door. You hear their footsteps. You hear how they drop their bag at the door, and then you hear how they take their coat off, and you know already what kind of mood they're in. The same is true when it comes to our mental health and our kids. One of the best things that we can do in order to ensure positive mental health for our kids is to make sure that we have positive mental health ourselves, to acknowledge the places in which we are struggling and talk to our kids about those places, to sit there and say, you know what, I'm not there yet, but I am working on developing a good mental health state of mind for myself because I want that for you too. So after that, after you're taking care of yourself, how do we talk to our kids about good mental health? Well, first of all, we need to create space. Just as much as it's important for us to take time to care for ourselves, it's important for us to take time to care for our kids and students. And the only way that you can do that is with intentional time. The average time a parent spends with their kids is just 5 hours a week. That's less than an hour a day of uninterrupted time where you're not bothered by screens or showers or cooking dinner or all of those things. And when they become teenagers, sadly, that becomes only about 4 hours a week that you actually are spending in intentional time with your kids. And if we say that our kids are like the most important thing to us, it's up to us to expand that amount of time. And you can figure out what that looks like in your life and schedule. Maybe it's intentional breakfast or it's intentional Saturday mornings for 4 hours, whatever that time looks like. In order to have these healthy conversations, you need to intentionally time out that time where you can check in with yourself as well as check in with your kids. I have 4 kids, which you know is my choice. And because of that, I have 4 different people that I spend a lot of time checking in on, not even counting myself and my husband. You see, your kids, they're not an extension of you. They're their own being with their own interpretations of everything. They can grow up in the same household and still see things so differently in their lives. It's fascinating and amazing and makes you just love them even more. But they need different things. My mom used to always say, the squeaky wheel gets oiled. And just because one wheel tends to be more squeaky and get some more time, it doesn't mean that the others don't need that time as well. My oldest 2 kids are from my first marriage. And when I was co-parenting with their dad, they spent about 70% of their time at my house and about 30% of their time over at their dad's. And their experience between the 2 households was dramatically different. Now they are 25 and 21 years old, and they're still unpacking what it was like to grow up with 2 very different families that they were a part of. So I'm talking about your mental health. I also want you to think about it as being health. Like if your legs didn't work, it wouldn't be fair for you to expect you to be able to walk around. When your legs don't work, it might be the effect of like a broken femur or a dislocated knee. It might be that you had some surgery, or it might be the effect of paralysis. All of those different things would make it seem that you couldn't walk, that you wouldn't be able to walk. So it's not fair to expect you to walk. But when your brain is struggling, when there is an imbalance there, it's not fair for you or for us to expect you or our kids to function as if it were. It might be like the broken femur, where it's just sort of something that's temporary. When my son Sawyer was born, he was in the NICU for 6 weeks. He was born at 35 weeks with a birth defect, and we almost lost him. It was a stressful time. I had 2 kids at home, 1 baby in the NICU, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my job. It wasn't until 6 weeks after we were out of the NICU when I experienced, for the first time in my life, a full-on panic attack. I started crying, and then I didn't stop crying. I started crying, and I didn't stop crying for about 3 weeks, which meant that I needed to get some help because I couldn't function in the way that I had normally functioned. After about 3 months of good care as well as good medicine, my brain and my body, they became balanced again. I healed from that very stressful time, and I didn't need to receive that care anymore. Just like if you had a broken femur, at some point you could walk again, maybe with a little limp, but it would feel better and it would heal. But sometimes mental health, it's kind of like a paralysis. It's just something that you learn to deal with and to manage and to balance and to take care of. A really good friend of mine experienced some childhood trauma growing up, and it affects her every single day and every minute of every day. And so she does what she needs to do to stay healthy and well. She exercises, she gets good sleep, she avoids alcohol, she takes her medication, she goes to therapy, and she makes sure that she takes time outside. She knows that if she doesn't take this, then her anxiety will just take her and take her will for life. So this is a thing that she's just going to always have to learn and manage. Mental health is regular health. So when you're talking to your kids about their mental health, it's everything from broken femurs that can heal themselves in a few weeks to paralysis. What's going on right now might not go on forever, but it might also have lasting effects. The Bible is full of people just like you and me who struggle with mental health. My brother-in-law once asked me if the writer of the Psalms was bipolar, because if you go and read them, one is high and the next one is low. So definitely could have been. The prophet in Elijah shows us a good model of how to take care of our mental health. Elijah has just been working with Jezebel and has this terrible experience, and he is exhausted. And so Elijah goes away to a cave, and this is what he prays. He says, "I've had enough, Lord. Take my life because I am no better than my ancestors." And then it says in 1 Kings that God had Elijah take a nap. And then when he came and woke up, there were angels there that gave him food and water. And so Elijah ate that food and water, and then God had him take another nap, a second nap, before he woke up and got another batch of food and water. And then finally, God says to Elijah, "I'm going to need to get you a partner. I'm going to hook you up with Elisha, and then you guys can do this work together." It's a great model for us because sometimes what we really just need is sleep and rest and regrouping and a friend to do the journey with. For your kids, that friend is you. You are their coach and their guide in this journey. But I want you to hear this. Whatever you go through when it comes to mental health, you don't go alone. And when it comes to talking to your kids, they don't go through it alone either. This is the reason I believe that God created us in community. So talk to each other, talk to your church, talk to a counselor. We are here for you. We're going to do this together.